On May 28th, whispers started slithering through Windsor like smoke under a locked door. Surveyors had reportedly been called to Frogmore Cottage, not decorators, not preservation experts, demolition minds. The very people brought in when a place is no longer meant to be remembered. And suddenly, one tiny royal house exploded into the center of a brutal question the palace never wanted to answer out loud. Are Prince Harry and Meghan Markle being erased from royal history brick by brick?
Breaking today, the final traces of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle from the British royal family are being erased. And this is far more significant than just the destruction of their former home.
Our clear message is being sent, and Charles is bringing in the bulldozers to bury any evidence that Harry was ever there. Why? Because the king is done. He's out. He wants to move on, and it's a very encouraging development.
Because this was not just any cottage. This was the infamous Frogmore Cottage. The house British taxpayers reportedly poured $2.4 million into renovating for Harry and Meghan back in 2019. 5 bedrooms, luxury fittings, designer details, the so-called symbol of their royal future. And now, according to reports spreading across the Sun, Sky News, and the British press machine, the plan is to rip it apart and convert it straight back into staff flats. Tiny residences for palace workers. Almost like the monarchy wants to downgrade the entire memory of the Sussex era itself. That is what makes people uneasy. They are not refreshing the property. They are undoing it, reversing it, rewriting it, and the language surrounding it has become colder than ice. One royal insider allegedly described the cottage as something nobody in the household even wanted anymore because it still carried traces of Harry and Meghan. Traces. Think about that word. Not memories, not history. Traces, like fingerprints at a crime scene. Suddenly, the rumors became darker. This was no longer about real estate. It was about exile. The palace, as always, says almost nothing publicly. That silence? That is where the real gossip breathes. Because behind closed doors, people have started piecing together a much bigger pattern. Harry and Meghan lost Frogmore shortly after Harry's explosive memoir Spare detonated inside the royal family like a hand grenade. The timing was impossible to ignore. One minute, the Duke and Duchess still had a royal address inside Windsor grounds. The next, King Charles reportedly asked for the keys back. Quietly, efficiently, no dramatic showdown, just gone. And now comes the twist nobody can stop talking about. Even Prince Andrew allegedly refused to move into Frogmore Cottage when it was offered to him. Andrew, the man clinging to Royal Lodge with both hands despite years of scandal. If even he looked at Frogmore and thought absolutely not, what does that say about the emotional stain attached to the place now? Because Frogmore became something dangerous to the monarchy, not just a home, a symbol, the last remaining thread connecting Harry and Meghan to royal life in Britain, the emergency exit, the safety net. The place they could theoretically return to if California ever collapsed around them. But if Frogmore is split back into flats, that safety net vanishes forever. And insiders keep circling around one deeply uncomfortable point. Security, control, surveillance. Frogmore sat on Crown land, yes, but it allegedly gave Harry and Meghan just enough independence to operate outside the tight palace machinery. Visitors, cameras, Netflix footage, private moments filmed inside royal property. Critics inside the institution reportedly never forgot that. Some believe Frogmore stopped being viewed as a family home the second it appeared inside the Sussex Netflix documentary. To the monarchy, that may have looked less like storytelling and more like betrayal. Now suddenly, every tiny detail feels loaded with hidden meaning. The walls being altered, the rooms being divided, the property being stripped back to its original purpose. Staff accommodation, not royal residence. It feels symbolic in the cruelest possible way. Almost like the palace is saying, you were never truly permanent here. And while the physical house sits dark and empty, another collapse appears to be happening thousands of miles away in Montecito. Because the timing of all this lines up almost too perfectly with the Sussexes' business turbulence. Spotify ended. Netflix reportedly downgraded. Corporate partnerships thinning out. Public appearances becoming increasingly mocked online. Even critics who once admired Harry and Meghan have started whispering the same thing. The glamour is fading. Tom Bower, the royal biographer who has become one of the Sussexes' harshest critics, keeps hammering one brutal argument over and over again. He says the real story is no longer their rise, it is their decline. And whether people love him or hate him, his words keep spreading because the optics suddenly suddenly look impossible to ignore. Huge deals once announced with dazzling headlines now appear quieter, smaller, weaker. The momentum that once terrified the palace no longer feels unstoppable. And that is where Frogmore suddenly transforms from a cottage into something almost psychological. A warning, a signal, a line in the sand. Because the monarchy never needed to publicly ban Harry and Meghan. It did something colder. It simply kept removing pieces of their old life one by one. Security discussions, royal duties, public appearances, residences, access, until eventually there is nothing left to return to. That is what makes this story so unsettling. The palace never slammed the door. It just kept narrowing the hallway until there was no room left to stand. And maybe the most chilling part of all is this. Harry and Meghan reportedly repaid every penny of the Frogmore renovation costs back in 2020. Fully repaid, which means this is not even about money anymore. The taxpayers funded the renovations. The Sussexes reimbursed them. Yet now more public money may reportedly be used to dismantle those same renovations entirely. Renovate, repay, erase, the entire cycle feels almost surreal. Meanwhile, William's shadow hangs over all of it, silent but unmistakable. Reports of the brothers' icy estrangement continue to grow, and royal watchers increasingly believe the future king has absolutely no interest in reopening the door once Charles is gone. Whether true or not, the perception alone is powerful, because perception is everything inside monarchy. And now, people are asking the question nobody inside Buckingham Palace once spoken to loudly. Is Frogmore Cottage being renovated, or is the Sussex chapter being carefully buried alive? The frightening thing is, the answer may already be sitting there in plain sight, hidden behind construction plans and silence. And once you start looking at the pattern closely, the entire thing begins to feel less like random bad luck and more like a carefully managed royal extinction event unfolding in slow motion. Because Frogmore Cottage is not the only thing shrinking around Harry and Meghan. The walls have been closing in everywhere. The Spotify collapse sent shockwaves through Hollywood because it was not just another celebrity deal quietly ending. One senior executive publicly blasted the couple as grifters. That word detonated across the media landscape because executives almost never speak that bluntly unless frustration behind the scenes has reached boiling point. Then came the Netflix whispers. Less exclusivity, smaller commitments, lower expectations. Suddenly, the power couple who once looked unstoppable started looking vulnerable. And this is where the gossip turns almost Shakespearean, because the Sussex brand was built on one gigantic gamble. Harry and Meghan walked away from the monarchy believing their royal status alone could power a billion-dollar empire forever. They thought they could keep the titles, keep the glamour, keep the mystique, but operate completely outside palace control. Half inside the system, half outside it. Global celebrities with royal sparkle attached. But what if the monarchy quietly understood something they did not? What if the institution knew that royal magic only works when the palace itself keeps feeding it oxygen? Because now, one by one, those oxygen lines appear to be getting cut. The Netflix shows generated headlines, but not sustained dominance. The podcast faded. The public appearances became increasingly divisive instead of universally adored. Even Meghan's lifestyle ventures reportedly triggered more online mockery than excitement in certain circles. Critics pounced on every launch, every speech, every carefully staged photo opportunity. And through it all, Buckingham Palace barely moved. That is the terrifying part. The monarchy did not need public warfare. It simply outlasted them. That silence has become its own weapon. Meanwhile, inside royal circles, the message reportedly becoming louder is brutally simple. There is no route back, no return to duties, no quiet reconciliation, no Windsor comeback waiting behind the curtain. Frogmore was the last symbolic bridge. Once that goes, the emotional geography changes completely. Harry no longer has a royal home in Britain, not a temporary suite, not a countryside retreat. Nothing. The prince born into the institution suddenly becomes a visitor requiring accommodation. And people cannot stop obsessing over the psychological impact of that. Because for all the money, celebrity connections, California mansions, and streaming contracts, Frogmore represented something emotionally irreplaceable. Roots, continuity, a physical reminder that despite the war, some tiny piece of royal life still belonged to Harry. Now even that appears to be disappearing beneath renovation plans and bureaucratic paperwork. Then comes the darker speculation swirling behind palace walls. Some believe King Charles is acting softer than Prince William would. That William's patience with Harry completely evaporated after Spare and the endless media grenades. Others insist William already sees the Sussexes as politically irrelevant and simply wants distance, not destruction. But regardless of which theory is true, the outcome increasingly looks identical. Separation, permanent and cold. And still, the monarchy never says it directly. That is what makes the whole thing feel eerie. There is no dramatic press conference announcing exile, no official statement declaring banishment. Instead, there are these tiny administrative moves that quietly erase presence over time. A removed office here, a security downgrade there, a residence reclaimed, a title discussion whispered into newspapers. The strategy feels almost surgical. By the time the public fully realizes what happened, the entire Sussex footprint inside royal life may already be gone. Even Tom Bower's most explosive accusation keeps echoing through the story like a ghost. His claim that the monarchy survives by obliterating the Sussexes from public life sounded outrageous when he first said it. Yet now, critics point at Frogmore and whisper, is this what obliteration looks like? Not dramatic destruction, just gradual disappearance. Rooms repurposed, names removed, history softened, doors quietly locked. And perhaps the cruelest irony of all is that Harry and Meghan once seemed larger than the institution itself. Remember the frenzy? The global fascination? The billion-click wedding coverage? The interviews that dominated entire news cycles? For a moment, it genuinely looked like the Sussexes could rival the palace from outside its walls. But institutions like the monarchy play a different game. They do not react quickly. They absorb pressure slowly. They wait. And eventually, they let time do the damage. Now, Frogmore Cottage sits at the center of that entire tragedy like a haunted symbol. Empty rooms, silent hallways. Surveyors walking through spaces once presented as the future home of a modern royal dynasty. And every hammer strike reportedly planned for that property suddenly sounds symbolic, not renovation. Revision, because deep down, this story was never really about a house. It was about belonging, about whether someone can walk away from the royal machine, publicly attack it, monetize it, expose it, embarrass it, and still expect the institution to leave the light on for them afterward. The palace appears to have answered that question without ever needing to say a word. And maybe that is the final twist nobody saw coming. Harry and Meghan left Britain to escape what they described as a suffocating institution. But now, years later, the institution still controls the emotional ending of their story. Quietly, patiently, brick by brick. And somewhere inside Windsor, behind all the reports, all the whispers, all the renovation plans and silence, one message appears to be echoing louder than ever. Out did not just mean out of the palace. It meant out forever.